Just getting my bearings. I got a little bit carried away in the workshop and lost track of time, so a few minutes late. Apologies for that. Just getting my screen on so I can read your messages. Good evening, good morning, Hector of WV Cigars, Jordan, Pipe In and Preacher Man Piper, and Scruffy indeed. How's everybody doing? Hope you're all well. I haven't actually turned out a pipe, turned being the operative word, for a while, so I wanted to get into the workshop. And I was determined to make a stem myself from scratch. Although I had made this one here on this pipe, but this pipe has turned out to be to have its issues. I have glued it and I need to sand it again. But a lot of experimentation happened on this pipe, including the staining, the contrast staining, which worked out pretty well. And this time came out pretty well. Hey Tree, how you doing? Yeah, so that was probably my best attempt at a stem in recent times, but I was determined to have another crack at it straight away, which is what I did. And I'll just show you what I've done. It's not finished, but just to give you a bit of a progress, it's a really nice lightweight pipe. Well, I think it's nice. As Hector correctly said, all the pipes that I make I think are nice. Not necessarily the case. I do often criticise my work. In fact, I criticise it a lot. And a lot of people actually leave me messages saying that I criticise my stuff too much. But you've got to be your own critic, haven't you? Mr. Scripto. Oh, this is a watered down coffee. I had it out in the garage. It was almost finished, and because I was late I didn't really have time to start making a fresh one, so I just added hot water. So it is somewhat diluted. I'm doing alright, Tree. I hope you are well. So I'll show you the pipe. No, just kidding. This is my Northern Briars, Canadian. And I had a very enjoyable bowl of Orlik Golden Sliced whilst I was making that pipe during the intervals that I could actually smoke. WV, I've made plenty nose warmers in 9mm. No shortage of those. That's a nose warmer. I think you could call it a nose warmer. That's a 9mm pipe. This one is going off to who's it going off to? To Bona Piper. That one. He won that in one of the gauze that I did. But anyway, tonight's pipe is this one here. As I say, it's not finished yet, still plenty of sanding to do. And I probably need to stain this as well. I might do a contrast stain on this one as well. It's got some nice grain. Look at that flame there, beautiful. And here's the stem. As I say, not finished yet, still sanding to do. Cumberland, or brindle I should say. And the bit's looking pretty good as well. I've still got to sort of perfect this side of things, but it's nice, it's fanned out. It's smooth. I still need to get some... I've got a tool that does that, but it's not precise. So I need to work on that. I see a lot of people using hacksaws which they shape to funnel out their bits. So I might have to do something along those lines at some point, but still a little bit of sanding and shaping to do. But I've smoothed it off just to be able to show you the progress. And you can see there's a lot of sanding to be done still. But what I can say is the amount of time it takes to do a stem is just crazy. Small drill bit on a drill press on an angle, yeah, that's a good idea. Might have a go at that. Need to clean out the drill a little bit, but it's perfectly drilled. Nice positioning on the drill. And that's dead center as you'd expect. I may well keep this one myself. We'll see, depends how it comes out in the final analysis. It's as light as a feather. I don't know, I haven't got a price yet, WV. It's where are my scales? I think one of my kids borrowed my scales. But I would say it's probably less than 30 grams, probably about 20-25 grams this pipe, maybe a touch more. But until it's finished, I can't really say a price. But my prices at the moment are ranging between £90 and £150 on average. Some less, some a bit more, depending on the complexity of the pipe. Somewhere between £90 and £150. Given the amount of time I've spent on this pipe with a stem, I don't know, but it's only because of my lack of experience, so I don't think I should affect the price too much more. But it will be just for the fact that it's a hand cut stem, not necessarily how long it took me, but just the fact that it's a hand cut stem, and that it's a brindle / Cumberland stem does add some value. So we'll see. First I have to decide if I'm going to keep this myself, and then we'll see. It depends how it comes out in the end, really, because it's the first real sort of attempt that I've done to do a stem to approach any kind of professional level, and we'll see how it finishes. I've also got to be really careful that I don't go through to the hole, because it's a really nice, thin, comfortable bite zone there, and there is a risk, obviously, of hitting that. I used I'm trying to remember the diameter drill bit. I think I used a 1.5mm, if I'm not mistaken, for that. What did you use, Jordan, for yours, for the bite zone? I did, hi Paul, I did notice, Jordan, that on your stems you tend to go straight down from this thick part. You go straight down, and then a thin stem all the way through to the bite zone. I'm curious to know why. Is that just your own thing, that you want it to be your signature, or is there a reason for that, or is it just easier to cut it straight like that? Well, I think that's a great reason, Jordan, because I guess that's how you create a signature look, is by just doing things the way you like it. And then, as you go through a series of pipes and, people, you may not see it yourself, and me the same, I may not see it myself. But after a while, people get to see, and they say, oh yeah, I can see that pipe was made by Jordan, or that pipe was made by Simon. In the same way as we might look at any other type of pipe and say, right, I can see that's a Stanwell, that's an Eltang, that's an Everson, or whatever. Obviously, I don't think I'm anywhere near that kind of stage, but I think that the little quirks that we have in the way we carve a pipe, I think that eventually that leads to identifying and becoming a signature of the pipes that you make. So I think for you, if that's how you like it, I think that's a great thing to keep on to. Doesn't mean you have to do it with every single pipe, but it does become something which you recognise in the same way as I recognised it. And I asked the question because it was something which stuck out. So as I said, I smoked some Orlick Golden Sliced earlier, and I have really been thoroughly enjoying OGS on its own, not just in London fog. I don't know if you guys saw Mike's reveal of challenge number 11. It is really hard to find a signature in this day and age. One of the people that I've seen doing that recently is Jeremiah at Bullfrog Pipes. He's made these gum nut pipes. I'm not sure if he's the first to use that shape, but certainly he seems to have made it his own. Hey Art, hi Tim, how you doing? It's quite a unique shape. Hey Sea Smokes. I mentioned you in passing the other day in one of my videos. I noticed that you've got that pipe from... I'm not even sure if I uploaded that video. I think I did. Did I put one out on Friday? Let's have a look. "907 Piper." I'm not sure that I did. Anyway, in case I didn't, what I did say in the video that I recorded was that I was pleased to see that it was getting passed on to somebody who's going to smoke it. A lot of people get really touchy. Just bear with me a second. Hey Mike, hi Daniel, and Pipes etc. How you doing, all of you? So what I was saying was that some people get really precious about the pipes. If you give somebody a pipe, and if that person dares to give it to somebody else, the guy that gave it to you gets really offended. So I had that once with a pipe, and some of you might remember it. No need to mention the name. But somebody did gift me a pipe, and hey Josh, so this guy gifted me a pipe, and it's a guy that I'd spent an awful lot of money with buying pipes a couple of years back. I probably bought half a dozen pipes. I probably spent somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 on a group of pipes. And anyway, so he gifted me a pipe, which was very nice. It was very much appreciated, presumably in reflection of the business that I'd given him. And then I wasn't smoking it for whatever reason, and I put it in one of my sales, and I got this quite an aggressive message from the guy. He's saying, you know, how, almost as if to say, how dare you put that pipe up for sale? I gave that to you as a gift. You know, doesn't that mean anything to you? So I promptly took it out of the sale. I didn't want to offend anybody. And I understand where it's coming from, don't get me wrong. You know, I wasn't trying to deny the appreciation that I had and deny the fact that I had been generous and given me a pipe. But I think people get a little bit precious about it. And for me, I'm much happier to see a pipe that I've given to somebody else, if they're not using it, is to pass it on to somebody who will smoke it. I can understand that imperator, that maybe a gift should be given away, not sold, but I don't see the difference. I can understand where you're coming from, but I'm not sure that I agree. Because if somebody gifts it and then you gift it on, I can hear that it's kind of staying in the same kind of vein, but maybe it shows a little bit of callousness on my part, I don't know. But hi Sandro, ciao. But you know, once somebody gives you a pipe, if it's not getting smoked and it's a valuable pipe, you know, say somebody gives me a pipe worth $500, should I give that away just because it was given to me? I should lose that value? I don't think so. I don't agree. I understand where you're coming from. I understand the sentimentality of your argument. But hi Imperator. But I you know, if it was like a $50 pipe, you know, then it's hardly worth offending somebody. And not that I want to offend somebody, not that there is a point where it's worth offending somebody, but I think there is a point where you can't be expected to give away something of a certain value, that's all. The Haddo's Delight was delightful in the beginning, but it became really quite strong and quite rich for me. It really is quite a spicy blend. The tin aroma is just unbelievable. I actually haven't opened it since last week. Whoa, it's still there. Not as pronounced, maybe. Absolutely, Paul. Everybody feels different about things. We certainly do. We're all human beings. We all have our own values and sentimentalities, you know, which are influenced by many things. Anyway, I didn't want to offend him, certainly. That I certainly didn't want to do, so I took it out of the sale. I still have the pipe, you know, but that wasn't my intention. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. Obviously, I wasn't trying to offend the guy. But seeing as he was offended, I took it out. I wasn't looking to offend anyone. Right, where's that Canadian one? The pipes that I have for sale are really been shown. I'm happy to show them again if everybody else doesn't mind. They're nothing fresh kind of thing, besides for the one that I'm in the middle of now, which I just showed you. If anybody hasn't seen it and wants to see it, I'm more than happy to re-show it. Daniel, yes, sorry, I missed that. Definitely best wishes for your mum. Hope it all goes well. I know how that feels because, believe it or not, my mum is currently going through a series of chemo treatments as well. Hey, PA Piper. Thanks, Hector. If you guys want to see the pipes, I'm happy to show them. This is one of the other pipes that I recently did a contrast staining on, and that sold pretty much after I reloaded this pipe on my channel. Yeah, Daniel, that is tough. That is tough. Can I ask how old your mum is? That's good of you. She's 65. Well, that's young. It's good of you to say PA Piper. They're okay, my pipes, you know. Some of them come up better than others. But if I'm selling it, then I'm happy with it. If I'm not selling it, then it's because I'm not happy with it. You know, I do revisit some of them because I know that I can tweak them as I develop my skill, as I develop my carving sort of experience. I do go back to some of the pipes and sort of tweak them because I know that I can do better. So to give you an example, well, that one's a good example. I wasn't happy with the staining on it, so redid it and it came out ace. This one, I completely reshaped this pipe. This was if you remember, this was a plateau top up to about there, and it was a much wider kind of bowl. Took it right down to make it a squat pot, and restained it with a darker stain. I could restain it again with a contrast, but I think I'm going to leave it. Daniel, that's exactly what we're about here. You know, this is just a group of friends chatting, so don't worry about it. Don't apologize. This one's one I made recently. This is actually a very, very well executed pipe. One of the better ones. This one, good dimensions, nice thick bowl, nice shaping, clean piece of briar. Still a little bit of rustication there, but nice, well balanced pipe. This one. So that one's available. And there's this one here, which this wasn't done using my high contrast sort of staining that I've recently learnt to do, but it still came up really nice with the staining. Maybe it would be a lot better with the dark staining, but it's pretty good as it is. Yeah, somebody else said that about that pipe, Hector. I think it was Mike said that it was a different pipe that he said that about. And there's this one which I restained on Mike's encouragement, and it's got like an orangey red kind of stain, and that looks fantastic. It pops really well with the blue stem, nice grain. A few little flecks here and there because that's, you know, close to the plateau, but a really nice pipe. The dress that Stanwell I don't have, no. And there's this one here. Also some great grain on this pipe. And this one, I'm probably not selling, but it's still unsmoked. Just a quirky pipe, which I like. That's another solid pipe. Here's another nose warmer. Somebody was like, oh, look at this, I've got a couple of dings here. I'll have to sand those out. And again, a pipe which may benefit from a darker stain, from a contrast stain. Really nice grain on it, sort of a multitude of grains. Dingy indeed. So this has got some lovely bird's eye there, and grain on the side. Maybe I should redo this one as well. Look at that grain. Which ones are those, Mike? Hey Chad. And I've still got this chunky monkey, which has been sitting in my drawer. Just look at that grain. So a fair few pipes sitting around. And then there's this one. If you guys remember this one, this went through about 3 or 4 versions till I settled on this. And we have this one, Josh. I think that's what you were just talking about. Nice sea rock rustication. Also a very nicely balanced pipe, will smoke beautifully, nice and lightweight. I'm not sure which one you were talking about, WV, but they're all 9mm except for this one. That's the only non-9mm pipe that I have, that I've made. This slightly bent apple. This one? All 9mm. This one's got a slightly flattened top and bottom to match the end there. But yes, this is 9mm as well. Do you know what, Daniel? You ask me this quite a lot, and it's a good question, because they're all challenging in their own way. This one here. Yeah, this one was also a big challenge. This was the first time I did rings on a pipe, and certainly it didn't come out perfect. The drill was slightly off center, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's slightly off, but it'll smoke absolutely fine. The drill in the shank is fine. It's a good question, Daniel, but they all present their own complications, and you know, hardly any pipes are completely go smoothly from beginning to end. This pipe that I did tonight, I mean, this is one I'm in the middle of, as I was telling you earlier on. It's this hand cut stem, which I obviously still need sanding, but it's one that I've made myself, which I'm really happy with how it's looking. Really nice and smooth, lightweight, thin on the bite zone. Nice, comfortable, rounded bit there. and that would be really comfortable. It's lightweight. There is a bit of a fissure down the bottom there, which is why I'm not sure if I'm going to sell this one. I kind of thought about rusticating it as well, but I'll probably end up smoking this one myself. But I'm going to stain this black before I go to bed tonight. Just finish off sanding, and I'll probably give this a black stain, and then just give it a high contrast to hide. I mean, this doesn't go through, it's absolutely fine. It is a fissure, there's nothing I can do about that. But the bowl is clean, the drilling is spot on. But I just can't risk selling this to anybody. So the last thing I would want is somebody to smoke that and the crack opens up and it burns through or something like that. So it's something which needs to be cared for, and also because it's really not my first stem, but it's the one which I'm so far probably the most proudest of. Obviously, hopefully I won't mess it up. I've still got sanding to do, and this bite zone is really, really thin, so I've got to make sure that I don't go through. Got to be really careful here. A very good shot pipe. I think this will be. It's a really lightweight pipe. I think this is a pipe I would smoke anywhere, not just in the shop. But I hear what you mean in terms of keeping it yourself. That's an idea, sea smoke, actually. Yeah, that is an idea. It's to make another stem, but I've got to get used to making these stems. The thing obviously is the amount of time it takes. I started this stem I think on Thursday, and I spent quite a bit of time on it tonight as well. The stem for sure takes longer to do than, this little bit here takes longer to do than the rest of the pipe. Well, Hector, that's I actually do like that shaping, the way it funnels out. But to be absolutely 100% honest with you, in this pipe, the reason why I had to do it was because I overdid the sanding. When I was sanding the bowl, I nicked the shank. So in order to make that uniform, I had to make that shape, and that's been the reason on more than one occasion, to be perfectly honest with you. But that's what I was saying before about the challenging aspects of making a pipe, is that most pipe makers won't tell you why they've ended up with a particular shape. See, I could keep on sanding that and get rid of it because it's almost at the end. It was bigger before, and I know it doesn't go right through, so it definitely finishes. But there was number one, I didn't want to risk going through the bowl, and number two, the shape. I like the shape, and because of this, I wasn't going to sell it probably. So, many pipe makers will end up having to adapt the shape of a pipe either because of flaws in the briar or because of a slip of the hand, like I did. Obviously, the more experience you have, the less you're going to have that slip of the hand, and the better tools that you have. It's because of the type of sanding wheel that I use that I have that problem. And what I do is, when I make it, is I cover this part of the pipe and this part of the pipe with a thick layer of tape, so that in case I do nick it, it doesn't do any harm. But I managed nevertheless to still do it some harm. This here is the area which I protect the most, because obviously it's got to stay uniform. I don't want any dings there. I've had that before, and I want this transition to be absolutely perfect. But as Mike had suggested, it's something which I've wanted to get for a long time, which is a French wheel. That will certainly make my sanding a lot easier and a lot more precise. The type of sanding wheel that I use now, which is a Velcro circular pad, the edge, because it's a card, when it's spinning, it becomes as sharp as a knife, and you just have to touch it and it just slices through the briar. So there we go. Well, Josh, we'll see what it's like when it's finished. Maybe we'll work something out together with the other pipe. I don't know. there won't be any issues with smoking it. I would certainly recommend that it's broken in carefully, just to make sure that nothing happens with that. If that overheats, maybe not, you could end up spreading that. So I wouldn't want to. I would certainly, if I was to sell it, it would certainly be with eyes open, so you know exactly what you're getting. But that will be a very, very nice lightweight pipe. I haven't got the scales here, which is a shame. I'm not sure. One of my daughters, she's doing some cooking classes in school, so she was using it, and of course didn't return it. Barbed wire piper, how you doing? Welcome. Wabi sabi, baby. What does that mean? Sea smokes. Do all pipe carvers use a lathe? I would say that the vast majority of pipe carvers have used a lathe at one point in time. I would say they all use a lathe for certain aspects of pipe making. So I would say that they certainly start off the stems using a pipe, but I find, based on what I've seen, is that the high graders, they might start off using a lathe, but then move to shaping the pipe freehand, and then only drill it afterwards. And they'll drill it on the lathe, but they use a completely different method, which looks really complicated to me, but as with everything, it's just a matter of learning how to use it. But what they do is they'll shape the pipe, because obviously they're chasing the grain. Once you drill it, you're restricted. You have to make your pipe around the hole. But if you haven't drilled the hole, then you can sand it and just sort of sand it around the best parts of the grain, and then you only drill it afterwards. So because the pipe is already shaped, you can't put it in the lathe because it's not square, and you can't line it up or anything like that, like you would normally on the lathe. So what they do is that once they've got the shape, they glue little blocks of wood to create the straight line, and then they have another block at the end here, which is they use the live center or something like that, or something similar, and then they'll feed it into the lathe. I'm not exactly sure how they do it, to be honest, but I've watched Jeff Graysick do it on his channel, but it certainly comes with a lot of experience anyway. And I think that experience brings a little bit of courage, because I think you do have to have courage to do that, to drill a pipe by hand. I think you have to have courage for, and I think experience brings that courage. Because don't forget, you're doing that after you've already made the pipe, pretty much. The rough shaping at least is done, and all that's lost if you mess up the drill. So experience and certainly courage. And you're going to have to sort of do one or two and mess them up in order to learn how to do them, that's for sure. Well, when it comes to... That's alright, Mike, no problem. When it comes to shaping a pipe, Daniel, I'm only speaking from my experience, my limited experience. For me, the lathe gives me some comfort. It gives me some security, because there's control in using the lathe. And I think most sort of amateurs moving over to being professional carvers, they need that in order to get started in the game, just to really get to grips with the whole concept of shaping a pipe and so on. When you use a lathe, there's a certain degree of predictability, because once you've drilled the holes in the draft hole and you've drilled the chamber, you're limited. You have to work your shape around those parameters. You can't change that anymore. So it does give a certain amount of security. It gives a certain amount of predictability, so that once you get experience using the lathe, you know that your draft hole is going to hit the bottom of the thing. Well, obviously you can make mistakes, but generally speaking, you can be reasonably confident once you get experienced at it that your draft hole is going to meet the bottom of your chamber. When you're freehanding, there's no guarantees. You really are relying on your experience, and it's I think a much bigger until you're really experienced using that method that I was talking about before. But I think it's a much harder way of doing it, to do it freehand. But certainly your creativity in terms of the shape is a lot better with freehand, no question about it. And I've just realised that I'm not actually smoking a pipe. Question, should we go pipe or should we go cigar? Brian is there lurking in the background, always up for the cigar, always up for the cigar. Good evening, Classical. Chad, what haven't you smoked since Monday? A pipe? Or a cigar? Yes, Pittsburgh, it is rather late, it's 5 to 1 in the morning. Sorry to hear that, Chad. I hope you get over that soon. Give him some chicken soup. Give him some chicken soup. Hot toddies, my friend. Freehand definitely gives you more creativity, but you can to some extent treat it like a freehand even though you drilled it on a lathe, so it may not strictly be called a freehand, but this here is a freehand. It's a volcano, but it's something which I would call a freehand type of shape even though it was drilled on a lathe. The same goes for a lot of these pipes. I mean, I would call this one a freehand type of pipe, but it's based on an apple kind of shape. But it's out there, but it was done on a lathe. I didn't, Art. I will have a look at that. Thank you very much. I will have a look at that. Which pipe was it? Was it the most recent one? The flat one, tomato? I haven't smoked that Arabian cigar yet, no. That's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA. I'm not sure when I'll smoke that, and I'm in some ways worried it's going to be a bit of an anticlimax, because so far all of the cigars which are supposedly boutique cigars, boutique Cuban cigars, they've really underwhelmed me. I've been really unimpressed with the boutique private label, if you like, Cuban cigars. Well, that would certainly give you a long smoke, Paul. Sorry, excuse my silence, I'm just checking something on this pipe here. Cigars of Habanos, okay. Sam, if you know when Peterson drills a system pipe, how do they add in the system part of the stem? And have you tried to make one? No, I haven't tried to make a system pipe. I don't think I've ever had one of their system pipes, so I can't really comment much other than to say that I think that the way they drill it is they drill into the shank twice. They drill the draft. From what I've seen in pictures and diagrams, they drill the draft there, and they also drill down there, so you get a little extra sort of overflow chamber. And I think, if I understood it correctly, the idea is that moisture collects down there and doesn't interfere with the smoke. Whether some people like it, some people don't. I don't know. I've not seen Top Chat. I've not used it. Hey John, how you doing? Monclord. So we've got some more OGS here. This is from a tin which is about a year old, from January 19. It looks like I've drilled this too deep and I can't get the filter out. And being a church warden, got to use these long pipe cleaners, and they're really flexible. They're too soft, really. Cheers, Sea Smokes. There we go. This is a nice church warden I made not long ago. Really big bowl, really thick walls. The bowl itself is not that big, it's deep, not that wide. But again, couldn't sell it because of an issue that I had over here. I had to put this block on because it made it much too thin. That there, by the way, was the Frank method. Supposedly. But it's a method which I've been using without knowing that it is a method. It just seemed to make sense to me. Hello, 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 Steph and Skip. I can actually light this one. You can watch. Kind of. Claude, to answer your question, I do have lots of tobaccos open. I don't usually smoke through a tin right from beginning to end. This particular tin I opened to make some London fog, and the rest of it I jarred up. So it depends on the tobacco really, but I have been smoking the OGS quite a bit. I'm really beginning to appreciate it and to find great enjoyment in it. In terms of the filters, Daniel, I don't really know because I don't really experiment much with them. I did at one stage, but I just use the Vaughan Dr. Pearl ones. I don't use anything else. That's the ones I use. So by deduction, I can tell that it's Skip. I did smoke the Stanwell ones for a while because I'd got them from somewhere. I can't remember who. I might have got them, I think when I went to the Israeli sale those couple of years back. At the time, she gave me a whole bag of filters at the time, together with the stuff that I bought. So in amongst that was some Stanwells, and they were exactly the same. I didn't really find any difference at all. the Stanwell ones, the Peterson ones. I have used them, and whenever I've had them and used them up, and then just gone back to the Vaughan ones. Simply, that's just the ones I buy. It's just, I suppose I just stay dedicated to that brand. That's all. I do smoke plenty of aromatics, but not the type of aromatics that you're probably thinking of. The aromatics that I smoke are things like Erin Moore, light aromatics. So essentially it would be a Virginia flake or a Lathe blend, but it will have some sweetener or flavouring in there. But it's mostly of a particular genre, just with the addition of a little bit of aromatics. Very rarely I'll take maybe some Blood Red Moon, something like that, but generally not. Exactly, Monclaude, exactly my point. It's not something you'd call a classic aromatic. So I do enjoy those, but classic aromatics generally I don't enjoy. Hey Snoopy. In terms of balsa filters, Daniel, they didn't work for me. When I first bought my first Savinelli, which was the 606, before I used 9mm filters, before I knew the difference, I just bought the pipe without even asking what it was. And that was a 9mm pipe. Came with the filters. I used the balsa filters for a while, and then when I ran out, I just didn't bother replacing them. They are very good at removing moisture. They do absorb a lot of moisture, but they don't do enough for me to prevent the tongue bite that I was suffering, which was the chief reason why I moved over to 9mm. Black and brown. Yeah, certainly the aromatics, you can't beat them for aroma. So if you're in company, then yeah, for sure. I'm afraid I don't know anything about American football, other than they smash their heads in. But other than that, no, nothing about it. When I was a teenager, I used to watch it actually, when it first started coming over to the UK on a Sunday morning, or was it a Sunday night or Saturday night, in the middle of the night. I used to watch the games. I got the hang of it, but never supported a particular team. Yeah, classical. When I was having my trouble with tongue bite, I tried everything, including drying out tobacco. I went through a really hard time, and a lot of people feel that if you smoke a filtered pipe, you're not really smoking a pipe. But I don't give a monkey's. I just smoke what I enjoy, and 9mm just completely eradicated tongue bite. So it works for me, and that's what I do. And since then, I've bigged up 9mm. I've definitely sort of raised the profile of 9mm around my particular channel and on my social media output, and I definitely see it on the increase. This one, Daniel, is the one that I did the first band on. It used to be a much bigger pipe, and I trimmed it down, took off the plateau, and made it into a pot, and it's a lovely looking pipe. The Garth Hogarth Cherry Cream, I have that, but I don't like that little bit of Lakeland that's in there. I might try it again soon. Vaughan do have the plastic cap on one end, so you can get some which have got ceramic or meerschaum on both ends, and the Petersons have plastic on one end, and you put that in the stem end, And some people say they prefer that because they know which end the filter has to go into the pipe. Or some people say they forget, they rather have the ones which are ceramic on both ends, that way it doesn't matter which way they put it in, which is true. But I don't know, I don't find it difficult to remember that the plastic end goes in the stem. An easy way to remember that is the plastic goes to the plastic, stem is plastic, so the plastic goes to the plastic. I smoked Blood Red Moon for quite a long time. When I was in my first year of smoking a pipe, I smoked Blood Red Moon a lot. Yeah, classical. It is a light Lakeland, I grant you that. It's definitely a light Lakeland, but Lakeland at all just switches me off. Any meerschaums that I've had, I've bought, except for, put it this way, since I moved over to 9mm, any meerschaums that I've had are 9mm. Blood Red Moon, put it this way, the first cherry tobacco that I had was just an over-the-counter which I bought on vacation in some market, and that was goopy stuff. But to be honest with you, I found out of all the cherry blends that I had tried, I actually enjoyed the Blood Red Moon the most, because it actually gives you a bit of a tobacco flavour as well. The cherry is pretty heavy. It's a cherry chocolate flavour. It reminds me of the Morello cherries, you know, the stuff you get in the jars, which has got that little bit of acidic note to it. And I enjoyed it, I have to say. But I don't smoke it very much. In fact, I don't think I've got any open at the moment. The Blood Red Moon I got from, the idea to smoke it, I got from Jay Dagner. He smoked that pretty much non-stop. It was between that and Cherry Smash from Boswell's. Boswell's Cherry Smash is also very nice, also a very acidic flavour to it. I'm not sure what he's smoking nowadays, but he was smoking that a lot, Blood Red Moon. I think, Daniel, that it really depends on how sensitive you are to tongue bite. It's going to be different for everybody. But for me, I just stick to 9mm because that's what works for me. So I don't feel the urge to have to go back to non-9mm pipes because it's going to make me feel more like a pipe smoker or more like a man. I don't have that need, so I'm just going to stick with what works for me. So if I'm smoking a Church Warden, I'll smoke a 9mm Church Warden. I wonder if Jay got some commission for smoking those so much. I mean, he used to buy it by the box. Jason actually put up a video the other day, or today or yesterday, for the first time in ages. Yeah, put it this way, if you like aromatic tobaccos, Blood Red Moon is a pretty good aromatic tobacco to my taste. Well, full Virginia flake. I've got a couple of tins in my cellar. I've got an open tin jarred up. I don't turn to it that often. I'm not a big fan. As I've said many times, you have to really sit down and focus on that blend. Give me all it golden sliced any day. Coffee, cocoa and chocolate I like in my cigars. Not flavoured cigars, Cuban cigars, or any non-Cubans as well. But if those flavours come through naturally, that's great. That's nothing better on a cigar. Snoopy, that's one of the main arguments against 9mm pipes. But you can adjust your packing method in order to compensate for any restriction that the filter gives you. But I've really never ever found it to be a problem. I suppose I've naturally adjusted the way I pack the pipe without even thinking, so it's not a problem. It's just a matter of getting used to it. Infused cigars are terrible, the ones that I've had anyway. I would go so far as to say infused cigars are an abomination. I had an Undercrown Sungrown on Friday, over Thursday and Friday actually. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't smoke the non-Cubans that often, but that's a good cigar. All the Undercrowns are really very good. You can't. That's also one of the problems in Pareto. You can't do that. But the need to put a pipe cleaner down your pipe should be negated by the filter. So one of the main reasons why you put a pipe cleaner down a pipe is to get rid of the moisture. If you've got a gurgle or anything like that, but the filter does that for you anyway, so you shouldn't really get gurgle unless your pipe is badly made, in which case, filter or no, you're going to get gurgle anyway. In terms of match blends, it's a good question because somebody asked that recently about the Peterson blends and the Dunhill blends, and say Sutliff blends. The Sutliff do a lot of match blends. It was actually a question about the Dunhill / Peterson against the Chariton blends and whether they were the same. And the answer I gave at the time was that when Chariton brought out their blends, they brought them out as their interpretation of the original Dunhill blends. And they said at the time when they came to the Pipe Club of London and they introduced all the blends, they gave us samples to try. They said that don't expect Dunhill Flake to taste, the Chariton version to taste exactly like Dunhill Flake. It's their interpretation. So what they did is they made recipes, they made blends, and they gave it to a whole panel of smokers, and they kept on giving them various different iterations of those blends, and the best ones they kept. They will have all been similar blends to the ones they were matching, but they weren't particularly, they weren't sort of anal about them being precise. You know, that wasn't their intent. But if you go to the Sutliff ones, for instance, those ones, the idea of those is to be matches. The idea is to match those blends. Or if you get some of the My Own blend in Denmark, those match blends, those are really, really very close. So for instance, the BS 759, I think it's called, which is the Balkan Sobrani match, it's a fantastic tobacco. Whether it matches the original blend or not, I couldn't say if it does entirely. Because you call them match blends because they are, all intents and purposes, match blends. They may not be precise, but they are close. And the idea is to recreate blends similar, at least, to those blends, so that, because a lot of times you can't make them precise because the tobacco is not available. So for an example, a Latakia blend which had Syrian Latakia in it could not be made now unless you have old stock of Syrian Latakia, because if you don't have Syrian Latakia you can't make an exact match. But they'll make one as close as possible, and people who liked a particular blend and now can smoke that, they will be grateful that at least they can have that blend which is close enough. Yeah, Peterson and Dunhill are exactly the same. Yeah, I was referring to the comparison to Chariton, not Peterson and Dunhill. Yeah, that is a problem, Imperator. That's something which what I do if that happens is, if for the pipe is not too hot, then I'll break the pipe down and I'll just clear it. But if the pipe has been smoked quite a bit and it is blocked, what I do is I'll take a pick tool like this, and I'll just feed it down the back there, and I'll go right down to the bottom and just tug a little bit, and that usually clears it. And then I'll tamp it again, because when you do that you'll create a little bit of a gap at the back there, and so I'll just tamp it to evenly cover it again, and I'm good to go. Hey Beowulf, how you doing? No, WV. All Golden Slice compared to Peter Stokerby's, I'm assuming, I don't know which flake you're talking about. They've got quite a few different flakes, PA, but so far the OGS I'm really enjoying at the moment. I find that the Peter Stokerby's are a little bit light sometimes. London Fog doesn't match anything, it's just something which I came up with. Oh, for sure, Art. No question about it. You get different crops tasting differently. You have the same with cigars. No question. Can you wash a pipe bowl in hot water? Well, yeah, McNeil definitely. McClelland was definitely big into crops, no question. If you wash a pipe, you're going to ruin the outside of the pipe, that's for sure. Whether you can wash it inside or not, I honestly wouldn't know. People do, I don't know what water would do to it, but certainly people do alcohol washes and things like that. Must have been something to do with the crop circles, Quaker, no? Basically, when it comes to Virginia flakes, my particular palate, I prefer a Virginia flake which has a little bit of something else going for it. It's why I like Erin more, because it's a good Virginia tobacco with a little bit of flavouring. And it's the same with Orley Golden Sliced. The Orley Golden Sliced is even closer to a pure Virginia, but it has a little bit of something in there, whether it's orange or some kind of zesty kind of flavouring. It's very light, but it just lifts the blend a little bit, and that's my palate really, my preference. The London Fog, I just experimented when I was fiddling around with it. At the moment, I usually do around 60% Orley Golden Sliced and 40% Virginia Woods. Yeah, it does have Perique officially, but it's really minuscule. It used to be Burley, and now it's Perique. I don't detect the Perique, to be honest, unless that Perique is what's contributing to that fruity flavour, but I do think there is some kind of topping in there. Or at least a casing which might have some flavouring with it. OGS is it's Virginia sweet. It's not aromatic sweet. That's why I like it. It's got a good solid sweetness in there, a little bit more than, say, if you take full Virginia flake, which is also a good quality flake, which will sweeten up with time. I mean, the one that I've got in my jar has been in there for 2 or 3 years, and it's covered in sugar, and it will smoke sweet. But this has got that little bit extra sweetness in there, which helps it along. That's the Erinmore one you're thinking of, Daniel. That's got the pineapple, or at least they used to have a pineapple, now it's something else. Murphy's Oil Soap. I thought you said soup. There was a bit of a typo there, Artie. Oh yeah, for sure, Beowulf. There's more than one kind of sweetness. Couldn't agree more, Art. It's a great tobacco. It's one of the first tobaccos, the Virginias, that I tried back in the day, that I could actually tolerate for a few minutes before I got bitten. But then I hardly ever touched the stuff. Went over to Lathe for a year or two, and then found 9mm, and then back onto Virginias. Mostly London Fog for a while, and then experimented with lots of different Virginias, and then discovered McClelland, and then they promptly went and closed their doors. You must have heard I was coming. Oh yes, Tim, I couldn't agree more. I would love it if OGS was available here. And maybe I'll ask Sam if what the problem was, but it may be to do with the topping, if there is one on there. If I had to choose a Peter Stockerby, it would probably be the Luxury Bullseye. Yes, so this is the Orlick Golden Sliced with the Judge. The most shrewd judges smoke Orlick Golden Sliced. And that's the Erinmore with a pineapple, although nowadays it doesn't have a pineapple on it. Interestingly, Erinmore is available here in the UK, so go figure. Yeah, Beowulf, absolutely. It used to be nothing but Northwoods. And if I smoke a Lathe blend 9 times out of 10 now, it will still be Northwoods. Yeah, you can get it from Europe. The Luxury Twist Flake has got a great aroma, but for me it doesn't come through in the flavour enough. I haven't tried their Balkan Flake. I hear a lot of people talking about Balkan Cecchini. I'm not sure if I still have a tin of that in my cellar somewhere, but I'm not sure that I've ever tried it. But a lot of people say that that's really good. Any Lakeland, Daniel, would probably fit that bill. Well, with Northwoods, what I've done is I buy an amount every so often and I leave it. So at the moment I'm smoking a jar that's a couple of years old. I've got another, I buy like 4 to 6 ounces every so often, and I put them in separate jars so that I've always got a certain degree of aging going on. So by the time I finish the jar that's 2 years old, I'll be on to the next one. That one will probably be 1.5 to 2 years old as well, and by the time I finish that one, the next one will be the similar age. It's definitely nicer when it's got a year or two on it. Well, I'm kind of all over the place with my tobacco. So I have, you can see those there. I've got about 4 of those containers full of open tins, and I've got sort of tins lying around my desk, and then I've got those jars at the top are 2 deep, 2 jars deep. So there's a lot of jars, and there's tins up there as well. And in terms of a cellar, those are some big containers there, and there's some others lying around. What I would say is that tobacco which you know that you're going to smoke, and not stuff which you may want to part with in the future, so you're not going to open it, but it's tobacco that you know that you're going to smoke, it's worth jarring them up, because they do age better in the jar than in the tin, in my opinion. So for instance, if you've got a favourite tobacco, I would jar them up and let air get to them every so often. Different tobaccos, PA. The OGS is essentially a Virginia, almost a straight Virginia flake with that little bit of flavouring, whereas the luxury bullseye flake is a vapor. It's a Virginia Perique, so you get that fruity, deep fruity sweetness coming from the Perique. It's a different tobacco, it's a different genre. It depends what you like. The OGS is much more pure Virginia in flavouring. It's much more zesty, it's much brighter, whereas the luxury bullseye flake, the tobacco is darker, and of course you've got the Cavendish centre, but the Virginia is mixed with Perique. It's a different tobacco, it's different flavouring completely. It's Virginia based, yes, but it's a different genre. Hey Tim. BRTV has got a messaging now. I've actually tried to respond to some of the messages, but I haven't quite worked it out. I sent an email to Phil to ask him how I can log in. I think he did send me a password at some point in the past, but I don't remember. Comments, yeah. In my opinion, barbed wire piper, yes. Especially with Virginia-based tobaccos. If you know that you're going to smoke them and you want them to age well in a space of 2 or 3 years, open them and jar them. For the medium term, definitely. If you're talking about 10 years time, then no, leave them in the tin. You maybe open them a year before you want to smoke them. But that's just my personal opinion. But for medium term, say 1 to 2 years, you know you're going to smoke it, I would jar it. And I would open them up every so often and give them a shake, get some air in there, and then close it up again. Daniel, 9 times out of 10 it will be rebranded, for 2 reasons. Number one, most countries nowadays do not allow you to blend your own tobaccos. Well, I don't know if most, but certainly here in the UK, B&Ms are not allowed to make their own tobaccos anymore. So if it's going to be a tobacco which has their own name on it, it's more than likely going to be a Garth Hogarth tobacco here in the UK. In America, certainly newer blends. Well, obviously the whole FDA thing is ongoing, so there's no real resolution yet, but certainly if you go into places like Boswell's, those ones are house blends. Those are proper original house blends. And in the old days, if you'd have gone into Kramer's, or if you'd have gone into any of the famous storied B&Ms, a lot of them will have been their own blends, but not anymore. It's obviously you've got Peretti's, and you've got Boswell's, and you've got a few that still do, but I think the vast majority are going to be, in actual fact, a lot of them used McClellan tobaccos, and now they don't have them anymore. A lot of them used 5100 as a blending tobacco. Who's Eric? Is Eric in the house? I haven't noticed. Oh, he's Eric? Okay. I'm very bad at remembering first names, I'm afraid, so apologies for that. I did toy with the idea, Mike, about the briar pack, but I decided that it wouldn't make sense being on the other one. It wouldn't be fair to go in on that one as well. Other people get a chance. You probably wouldn't have given it to me anyway, so there you go. Daniel, I don't know the answer to that question. I only mix tobaccos that I have, and I just play around. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I thought, Mike. So I'm not a tobacco blender. All I've got is the tobaccos that I have, and sometimes I mix some of them together. So that's not real blending. It's just taking two existing blends and mixing them with other blends. It's not, that's not real blending. Grousmore. There's another Lakeland, isn't it? Rather not nice, if you ask me. Hi, Stonehenge. Daniel, you can buy blending tobacco from many of the websites. You can buy Perique, you can buy Virginia, you can buy Burley, and you can buy Latakia. You can buy anything you want. Which number was that, Tim? I forget. Which pipe number was it? '63. I bought some blending perique from GQ Tobaccos, and that's wonderful stuff too. Really good. '63. Oh, that was a very nice pipe. That was a little apple-shaped pipe. That pipe, I got my first. There's a couple of guys on IG, proper pipe carvers, that been watching my progress, and that was the first pipe that they said that they really, really felt that I had moved on in my shaping. Hey Said. (1967). Well, 67 is probably gone. 77 went to Wildcat. (1967) will probably take about 15 years. It was a good year indeed, Chad. Mine was 69. Alright folks, it's late enough, it's 1:45, and I still want to go back out to the garage and give this a black coating so that I can sand it down tomorrow and finish it off. Got to sand this brindle stem some more, but it's looking pretty good. Lester Skinner comes in at the tail end. We're just about to say goodbye. Porporin, Lester Skinner, hello and good night indeed. Thanks very much, Josh, Mike, Snoopy, Lester, Porporin, Daniel, PA Piper, Beowulf, Tim, Eric, I'll try to remember the name, Chad, Said, Desert Pine Piper, Tim, Ron H, Stonehenge Minstrel, and everybody else, in case I missed any of you out. Barbed Wire Piper, Classical Pipes, John if you're still there, Paul the Piper, Nat, Art, and everybody else, Imperator. Thank you all for joining. A little bit shorter than usual. As I say, I want to still get out and it's late enough. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Enjoy your smokes. And I will catch you on the very next one.